Hey everyone, Professor August here, and in this video I'll be talking about Sahar Mustafah's The Beauty of Your Face. This book was published in 2020, and I was really pleased to read this book because it's super relevant to our lives in the United States right now, and it's kind of unfortunate. Like, if I'd read this book 20 years ago when I was a kid, it would have seemed very relevant, and I'm kind of afraid that like 50 years from now it's also going to seem super relevant because the book goes back and forth between a white supremacist mass shooter and the main character Afaf and her life. There just is a lot in this book to deal with. So it's actually really interesting because as I was reading the book, it reminded me of some documentaries that have been made in the last few years. There's one called White Right by Dia Khan. Dia Khan is a documentarian. She's European Muslim, and she did this documentary during the first Trump presidency in the United States, and she embedded herself in white supremacist groups and tried to befriend some white supremacists to try and understand why they do the things they do and why they believe the things that they believe. And this book kind of does the same thing in that the main character, Afaf, when she's faced with this mass shooter, her instinct is to ask the question, what's your pain? Like, why are you doing this to us? Where does your pain come from? And that's a weird instinct to have, but also it seems to be the correct instinct because a lot of these white supremacists, at least the ones that Dia Khan interviews in the documentary, are they just have a lot of pain inside, and instead of channeling the pain towards these corporate oligarchs who are making everybody's lives miserable, they scapegoat and they turn towards the most vulnerable in our society. And so they blame immigrants or Muslims or Jews or trans people, or you name the group, and they blame them instead of the people who are actually at fault for um, the pain that's being caused in our society. So I thought that was really interesting about this book, and it's really, really relevant to our lives right now. Even though it was written in 2020, it could have been written like today, or it could have been written 30 years ago, and or 50 years from now. I mean, these are issues that seem to be perpetual in American society. The book primarily focuses on Afaf and her life growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. Her family is Palestinian and they immigrated to the United States, and they're having a really rough time. Early on in the book, Afaf's sister goes missing, and that really just breaks the family apart. And so the book follows Afaf through her childhood, her teenage years, young adulthood, and adulthood. And the book is sort of framed with this white supremacist entering Afaf's school as an adult. So as an adult, Afaf is a principal at Nuruddin School for Girls. It's an Islamic school, and it just leads to these like introspective moments where Afaf is sort of thinking about her mortality and how she fits into American life. And we also get the white supremacist perspective, so why he's doing the thing that he's doing. It's really interesting to sort of have that framing for the book because mass shootings are so commonplace in American society at this point, and a lot of times we're focused on mass shootings from like, an aggrieved student or former student, but we also have a lot of terrorism in this country from white supremacists. So this is the other type of shooting that takes place where somebody will enter a mosque or a synagogue or a temple, or a school, like an Islamic school, and just murder people for no good reason. And so that's the framing that the book takes. But the book, it really isn't about white supremacy. It's about this family and the struggles that they're facing. There's a lot of just common things that immigrant families go through and the difficulties that they have settling into American society, because on the one hand, you're different because you're not part of your like heritage group anymore. And you're also different in American society because you're not like this waspy person. You're not white. You're not Christian. And um, finding your place can be difficult. Afaf is the main character, and most of the book is told about her life growing up in the States. Afaf is just sort of a typical American girl from an immigrant family from Palestine. She struggles to fit in school with her peers, and as she grows up, she struggles with her identity with her family because her family doesn't want her to be American, like an American, or behave in specific ways. And then at school, her peers think of her as like the perpetual foreigner because she doesn't look like them and her family isn't just like a typical white Midwestern family. And so she struggles finding her identity. As a young girl, when her big sister goes missing, Nada, it tears the family apart. Nada, we kind of like we get introduced to her throughout the book a little bit. I'm not gonna like spoil anything because there's a lot that goes on with Nada, but she is the impetus for the story. Like it just tears the family apart. The younger brother is named Majid. He is just like a typical American guy. Like he grows up in this immigrant family, but he goes down the route of sports and education, and he does his own thing. He um, doesn't seem as connected to the family as Afaf does. So Baba, he is the father figure. He's kind of an alcoholic. He has a rough time trying to deal with his eldest daughter going missing and dealing with life in the United States as an immigrant. His wife, Mama, she just becomes super distant. She doesn't seem to care all that much about her kids once her eldest daughter goes missing, and it creates a lot of tension in the family. The book primarily follows Afaf, and as a child, she desires to be accepted by her family, but it's really difficult because of the circumstances. And in school, she's having a hard time because she's not a typical white Midwestern girl. And as she grows up, she seems to give into letting other people take advantage of her because she's trying to find some sort of connection, grounding herself in society. As an adult, though, what's interesting is Baba and Afaf, they're able to find community and acceptance through religion, through Islam. So they have sort of an awakening, a religious awakening, and they connect to the local masjid, the local mosque, and the community of Palestinians and Arabs that are in the suburbs. On the flip side, Maman and Majid, they seem totally disengaged with religion. They see it as this woo woo thing that is pointless and doesn't create any meaning in life. But the interesting thing with Afaf is once she finds Islam in the community, the book doesn't take this religious bent. Like it doesn't have a religious bent to it. It's primarily focused on how religion and Islam creates community and grounds people so that they feel accepted. And so I think a lot of people view religion that way, where it's a group that you feel connected with and it's heritage. It gives you a connection to your ancestors and people who've come before you. And for other people, it's sort of spirituality. So like a deep belief in God and practice. And so you kind of get that dichotomy with Afaf and the way she approaches religion. She's sort of brought into the fold of Islam through community. And it's only through the community that she is then able to like veer towards a more religious and spiritual life. Is this book easy to read? Yeah, yes, and no. Mm. Yes, the chapters are short. The structure of the book is conducive to easy reading. So the story goes by pretty quickly. Um, so yes, it is easy to read. There are a couple of things that might hinder readers, especially if you're not familiar with Arabic. So early on in the book, you have to kind of get used to a couple of words here and there that are presented in Arabic instead of English, but they're all words that you probably will like be familiar with. So for example, instead of the word Arab, you get Arabia. Instead of American, you get American. So there are words like that where in context you can kind of figure out what it is just because of the spelling seems close enough to English. There are some Arabic phrases that might trip you up as a reader, but they're not that complicated. So it's not like you're missing a complete like plot point if you don't understand what it is. Um, but I think from context, a lot of it is decipherable. It's not super complicated. The thing that might be super hard is actually just the framing of the book. The book opens up with a white supremacist, and you kind of get instances of his point of view throughout the book. That's kind of tough, just given everything that's going on in American society and how America seems just incapable of dealing with really tough issues like gun control and gun violence and just allowing white supremacists and I don't know, hatred and violence of that sort to continue and get even louder and more prominent in our society. So that aspect of it might be a little tough to digest a little bit. But on the whole, for the most part, the book is pretty easy to read. I think it took me about I don't know, 6 hours, maybe a little less to read the book over 2 sittings. It's just around 300 pages. And again, the chapters are pretty short. So you're able to like read sections of it and then put it down, do something else for a little bit. So I think it's actually pretty conducive and easy to read. Just a couple of Arabic phrases here and there that you might have to contend with. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting book to read, especially these days. If you're interested in picking it up, the link to the publisher is in the description box. And if you do read it, I hope you enjoy it. If you have read it, let me know. Let me know what you thought. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe below. Catch you in the next video.